Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Planning Strategy Committee for today, 28th of August. We have no apologies. We do have Councillors Quentin Smith and Barry Bruce online. Not an apology, but Michelle will send in that she's not well, that she was going to join online, but she's leaving it up to Anita. And we haven't got anyone else online, have we? No, Mary's not online.
She might join later.
Okay. Any declarations of conflict of interest based on the agenda or proposed agenda?
No.
No public forum. We do have a matter lying on the table, and we'll up so the resolution is that the item titled Request for Delegation to Resolve a Stage 2 PDP Appeal by Boyd (brackets Ladies Mile) be uplifted from the table. And that's in the agenda for later. So that's the resolution. Does someone move that? By Gavin, seconded by Matt. All in favour? Carried. Thanks. You got the
Council so we can see that.
oh,
Would you be able to put your cameras on, please?
yeah, just for information, there's a quorum now for committee meetings. It does include the people online. The law, legal, you say that has been updated in the law. So people online now do actually can be counted for a quorum. Okay, makes sense. And so, Barry, when do you vote for that? For the resolution to uplift the item? Did it? Okay, Barry. Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, confirmation of agenda. We've got the agenda there. That the agenda be confirmed without alteration. Moved by Matt, seconded by Melissa. All in favour? Aye.
Aye.
Carried. Thank you. Confirmation of the public minutes of the meeting. Resolution of the public minutes of the 17th of July 2025 planning strategy meeting be confirmed as a true and correct record.
I only had one thing on that.
Right.
Was the title for item 1. It's recorded as just the Southern Corridor Structure Plan, but in the minutes, in the agenda of the last one, it was more white than that. It was strategic growth update on the agenda items, but in the actual title itself, it was even more than that again. So we, I don't know, change it back to strategic growth update.
What the title for the
item number 1.
But the amended title, yeah, the proper one is the new spec.
Yeah, well,
rather than just,
I guess what I'm saying is it wasn't just solely the Southern Corridor Structure Plan anyway.
oh, okay, I see what you're saying. So we alter it to the title as per the agenda.
Yeah, so on that it says strategic growth update.
So we'll put the full wording in there. Yeah, that's a good point. Thanks, Gavin. So with that, alteration, any others? Without alteration, the public minutes are supposed to be confirmed with the alteration to for full title of item number 1 as a true correct record.
Yep.
Gavin moved it, seconded by Melissa. Any other comments? All in favour? Yeah. All right, now we're getting on to item 1 now. And invite Anita to the table and right, thanks team, over to you.
Good morning, I'm Katrina and me and Anita are going to be giving an update on the TAP-wide Southern Corridor Structure Plan. Cameron Wood isn't here today, he is unfortunately off sick, but together we've been working on this, and this is an update ahead of the council meeting on the 4th of September, where we're taking the structure plan to council for adoption. So significant amount of work has happened in the last 6 months, and since this planning and strategy report was done, there's been quite a lot of work done in the progress between this and what will be presented to council. So we're happy to provide an update on the work done since, or happy for you to ask questions, specific questions about what has been planned in the structure.
Okay, we've read the item. Just, is there anything you would like to highlight or anything changed or wanting to be emphasised before we go to questions?
No, it's just more additional information about certain work streams, predominantly natural hazards and three waters.
So what does that mean? What's come out of that?
So we've been able to refine what has been said and been able to provide more information regarding the staging of the three waters infrastructure and what that means for the development. And for the natural hazards, we've reviewed the technical reports provided by our consultants and received more information from that.
Okay, any other people?
No.
Okay, well, let's go through it then. We'll just go through it and see if there's any questions from members. Just wanted to, for starters, maybe bigger than just this item, but understanding where the structure plan goes. It goes to the council 4th of September, the structure plans that go through that process is adopted. The only way it can be implemented is through plan changes. It's just really understanding, based on recent government direction, how that process would work if we are not able to put in plan changes or accept non-private plan changes. Any indication on how you see that working? Oh, Alison. Sorry.
I'll just tell you what you said, because you just said that.
Well, I did talk to her yesterday, but I don't know whether now's the right time or not. It's just understanding how we do plan changes to, if the structure plan is adopted, the next stage, based on recent government direction.
Yeah.
Or are we likely, how do we process doing plan changes to implement the structure plan?
I guess I'd answer that in two parts. In terms of the plan stop legislation, which has just come into force, we're just working our way through that. It's really new. And yeah, it sort of came from a little bit left field. We will be probably making some cases to the Minister to undertake a little bit of our existing growth related workload to continue on projects which are really important for future planning of the Queenstown 8th District and to give effect to the existing spatial plan. A contender for that would be the Southern Corridor structure plan, given the amount of work and up-to-date information we have on that area, especially regarding engineering and natural hazards. So yes, we'd look to make an application to the Minister. On the second hand, as you'll be aware, we have a program of change under the Resource Management Act and what that will look like, and we will have more understanding and focus of that at the end of the year when we get the next bill. But that is looking at councils focusing on regional planning, spatial regional planning at a higher level, and then new district plans which will give effect to that. So any work that we are doing in this space in terms of giving effect to the structure plan in terms of what the most appropriate zoning is and will be over time is not lost, and that work will continue. And that's what the government has asked us to do as part of that plan stop, to ensure that you're not allocating resources to planning work that may not matter under the new regime. I would consider giving effect to a structure plan which has council has worked really hard on and has some really good recommendations to be in that basket of work that will continue.
Okay, thanks, Alison. Before we move on, anybody got any questions on that?
On that topic,
Sorry?
on that particular topic, or in general?
No, just on that particular topic. Well, it's a higher level thing, just, but it's, yeah, just to understand where it's going. Okay, no, okay, we'll just work our way through the item. Sorry, Alison, I didn't mean to catch you. working page 14 of the agenda. Then we've got a range of issues were raised by the community. These were summarised below. On page 15 and 16.
I've got a question. about
Gavin.
One or two of those. So, every time we talk about this, it's highlighted again, the active travel box there about the strong level of support from public engagement for active travel routes. So the response is the draft structure plan has been amended to provide greater emphasis on active travel links. How has that been played out in practice? How does it apply so that we actually get the active travel routes?
Yeah, well, also the structure plan is meant as a high level strategic guideline. So what we, the key thing is that we have a plan and it is showing those connections so that when we come up to long-term plan funding or we're working with developers, we can say this is what we need.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously there are limitations because of funding moving forward, but I think it's just critical that we have a plan in a direction that we want to push forward.
Okay. Because I know for the developers that are working out there at the moment, they will have sections, I think, currently in their resource consents that they need to provide as part of the consent conditions. The other aspect which you just touched on there was the long-term plan, and whether QLDC has money to contribute to it as well. Because I know that section from the Kawerau Falls Bridge to the beginning of the development parts is that the Trails Trust is keen to have taken over from NZTA because they have been able to deliver it. And they're really keen to get started. They put a resource consent application in. The only thing they're missing, once that's granted, if it is funding. There's a last little piece of funding that they're missing. It's about $500,000. So it'd be good, if there is some, if it also applies to councils thinking about the long-term plan, those sorts of things might be able to happen.
Well, that wouldn't, surely the structure plan would acceptable influence the next iteration of the long-term plan as we go on. It will have something more definite to be backing up bids in the long-term plan.
I mean, hopefully by the time the next long-term plan comes around, the Trails Trust will have found that funding. They are looking, they've got it.
Do you have any more on that one?
Or not on that.
Okay.
No.
Quentin?
Sorry, thank you. Yeah, look, it's good to have an update on this. I just, it's good to see that transport is a big one, and I've highlighted that before, and I just wanted to remind us of the previous update that we had in September last year, and which has been, for me, is quite profound, and it says the Kawerau Bridge has a capacity of 1,500 vehicles per lane at peak, driven per hour, presumably. The current peak demand is currently 1,200 vehicles, and northbound, it means the capacity will be reached with an additional 300 vehicles per hour. So, that just highlights the size of the infrastructure challenge, I think, particularly relating to transport, that, there's not a lot of capacity, and that this will, the other thing I just wanted to draw highlight. So something that obviously I've raised concerns about the infrastructure in general in the Southern Corridor and how we're going to, given that most of it required to achieve the outcomes of this is still unprogrammed, unfunded investment. So something that's come to my attention recently was, I think it's Watercare in Auckland have a very sophisticated mapping system that basically identifies the constraints of the Three Waters infrastructure in delivering intensification in Auckland, and it provides I suppose the likelihood and of those services being able to be achieved. And I think this was something that, I think would be useful for us to have some sort of tool like that to really understand where. I mean, as I've said, I support comprehensive planning, but we'd need to understand what the limitations are on infrastructure, and a tool like that would be really useful. So I just wanted to highlight that.
Yeah,
We-
good point, Lena.
We totally agree. We've actually, as part of this to Tapaway, we've actually mapped out all the interrelationships. You know, depending on what route we take the wastewater, there are some interrelationships with Frankton upgrades, with the Quail, in terms of water, there's a Quail reservoir. So as part of this, we have mapped out those interdependencies, and I know the P&I team are doing that more broadly. So it's really clear when we're coming to make any decisions moving forward, we know what those interdependencies are on each other. So because it is a network, even though we are quite unusual where our network goes out into spurs, unlike Christchurch and say other places where it's more of a circular network, we still have those critical interdependencies that we need to be aware of.
So, based on what Ben's talking about, I don't know if you've had a look at the water care
Yes, we
mapping
have,
tool,
yeah.
but it's something, so this came up in another thing we're talking about, how do we show people,
Yeah,
and
how
so
we-
if people like pictures or whatever, I'm not sure, but
Yeah,
some mapping system.
We've been having discussions with P&I's asset management team about tools similar to this, and they have been looking at it as well. So I think it'd be worthwhile asking that team for an update on how that's progressing.
Yeah, that would be good.
Good internal resources now in that team.
Yeah, just through the chair, you know, this is probably as an infrastructure committee matter
Oh,
related to
yeah.
how we understand our infrastructure. And then that gets fed through into the planning teams and the strategy teams in relation to how it's all going to work. Obviously, and the investment in water care in Auckland and the size differential between the areas will have a particular impact on how much we can invest, resourcing, et cetera, to put into that. But again, the infrastructure team and through the infrastructure committee will be the best avenue to understand that a bit more.
Yeah, it's just at the end of the line, just for communicating to the elected members and even possibly to the community, if there is some, you know, out of that P&I tool that we can use, because it came up in, KPI discussions.
Yeah. And just to expand further, they map the areas, you know, with effectively 6 tiers, but 5 tiers of capacity. Areas with capacity, areas with capacity but closely monitored, areas with limited capacity, areas with no capacity right now and no long-term capacity. And then they've got another category which relates to a separate administrator. So I mean, I think that's a useful tool. And yeah, I mean, just to reinforce that there's no way we can provide infrastructure to all our zone land, and I think having a clear justification on what developments can be serviced, or you know, and ones that can't is very important expectation wise.
Okay, thanks, Ben. Matt?
Thank you. Just wondering how much the influence of the current financial funding tools influence the structure plan, specifically for our other partners like NZTA and those sort of guys who will have input into this, but they may be thinking about the current traditional funding models, and that may restrict how they shape it.
I think we were running into the risk of the sort of the chicken and egg scenario. I think we needed to have a plan of what was going to happen down there, so then we can inform those types of plans, which seems, but we are moving to that iterative process. But right now, NZTA, we're just sort of, they don't actually have a plan for the Southern Corridor as of yet. Through the structure plan process, it's bringing it to the forefront, and they are looking at the network overall, so there's a real opportunity to work with them. But we know that to bring investment forward, in particular down here, we are going to have to look at alternative delivery ways of bringing that forward. But the problem with transport is it's not just a Te Tapawai problem, it is a network problem. Yes. So it's all interrelated. But I think we do have some opportunities down there because of that we've got a couple of critical developments happening, and we have the ski field too. So there's a real opportunity to do something different down there. But so in terms of the actual ways, no, they haven't, but we have said, yes, we need to look at alternatives to do that.
Okay.
And through chair, we are working together.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
How much does that regional deal discussion on the side have an influence on their thinking?
I think that the transport aspect will be critical, because that transport ask is to do with the network and also the interdependency sub-regionally. So I think that potentially might bring forward pathways to deliver things and to do things slightly differently.
Gavin?
So your society had one question.
It could be anywhere on this now. couldn't
Yep.
it?
So I am down to growth, the comment there, so many
What
respondents
page you
on 15 still.
on? 15.
Many respondents raise concern about the level of growth that is taking place across the district and the desire for the population to remain as it is today. I mean, there's all sorts, that comes up quite frequently in all sorts of forums, but obviously there's the response to that here tells people how we are going to accommodate the growth, but how do we make it? What do we say to people to, to respond directly to that concern? We can't expect the population to stay the same.
Yeah, and we currently we don't have any mandates to stop growth. We're required to plan for growth and to respond to it and do it in a sustainable way. And what we've heard from our community is that we want to have well-designed communities that have parks and critical infrastructure, including healthcare and schools. So I think the response is, look, we are growing. And majority of people we talked to who did raise that point had moved here in the last sort of, quite recently. So I think, so a lot of us have moved here for a reason. And so we're all on that same pathway. So what we need to do is actually make sure that when these areas are growing, we are thinking about the long term and the things that make a community good. And that is having community infrastructure, having connections, having schools, being able to go walking to the dairy and grab some milk, they're all things that have come up. So that's what we've had to focus on. But also because we are a high growth area, we have to respond to that growth. So we have to make sure we have enough plan enabled capacity and we are meeting those future needs.
Yeah, through the chair, if I could also just comment on that. So a lot of the decisions or levers, if you like, are not within local control in relation to the expansion of growth. I think it's really clear if you look at the mandate of central government, if you're not doing something that requires everywhere to grow really fast, then get it out, because we're giving you a plan that's going to make that happen. What we're trying to do in this space is to go, okay, how do we actually address the central government mandate to grow or to not inhibit growth, while looking at what are the impacts of that? How can we localize those within areas so we're not creating those wider effects from the growing areas by having self-sustainable areas that grow well through the partnerships that we've got going, to try and reduce those traditional effects of you grow here, things happen here. Now, this is complicated, obviously, by a fast track regime that is going up outside our strategic growth model, which is looking at how do we grow areas without those externalized effects insofar as we can. But to people in the local communities say, hey, we need to stop growth. This is not. That the levers are not within the local control to be able to do that. And it is understandable that people are concerned, and it's difficult to understand unless you're in it every day, that this is an overarching issue coming from central government that we are required to respond to. We've just finished an urban intensification plan changing process that is telling us
Tell you about it's about growth.
that is directing the local authority to undertake this work to expand growth and have it in a way that responds to those areas, in areas that are serviced, that don't require people to go off and get their milk at the shop, miles away, and create traffic on the roads, try to create areas with education facilities. All of these things are part of a difficult to work within process of having growth occur, trying to do it in the best way possible to minimize effects outside those areas.
And we talk about the challenge is keeping that in what we understood.
Yeah, well, we are, like I said, intensification theories, we heard a lot about from a lot of people where they want the door sort of shut. Now they and Melissa.
That follows a little bit on from what Dave was saying. How does this relate to the current fast track? It's not really a proposal anymore, application.
RCL.
Yeah, the RCL one. So I guess, how can we, I know that this is just the start of this process, but is there any way we can use this through that process? And when I look specifically, is that second bridge, how that's being requested and how we're saying that's absolute, it kind of looks like it's absolutely necessary. Is that something, are we going to be able to feed this in even though it's not finished?
Well,
Sorry, I don't know
yes.
if I'm looking at.
Apologies for the chair. Well, yes, absolutely. That's been the hard work that everyone's been putting in so much.
Yeah.
To be able to be in a position to feed into a logical process of debate of how this is going to work, how what the structure plan is, what council wants to occur, why we want it to occur, how a fast track may work with or without or against that. And then what our advice as a council and other partners in the infrastructure space, the NZTA and all those agencies that are involved to say, hey, how is this going to feed into a better way of growing? So absolutely, all the hard work is been to try and have leverage in that space.
Okay, so even though it's not part of the district plan, because we hopefully will have this signed off, it's something we can use as evidence to what might need to happen.
Yeah, so we've been working with the fast track applicants for a significant period of time. It's not,
No, exactly,
you
yeah.
know, we're trying to get the best solution for the community while understanding there are requirements of applicants.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions, just anywhere on this really good summary? The big one there, I guess the change was NZTA wanting to put in another bridge, and that's the first time that's been stated so strongly, is that correct?
Yes, correct. It was mentioned as an option within the draft structure plan, and they requested it to be strengthened, to be brought more to the front.
But just noting that it is subject to further investigation.
Yeah.
That's another critical change that happened through the feedback was the bus lanes. We discussed them, and that's something that came quite clear through the response from the community. And so that's something that we added and had support from both ORC and NZTA to do that. So
Yeah, the timing of the public consultation happened alongside the new bus route going on in from Hanley's Farm on Southern Corridor. And I think that really helped feed those discussions about public transport and the buses. So they have been a really good uptake.
Okay, good uptake on that new.
Yeah,
every half hour during peak.
Excellent. And I suppose, but looking from the outside, looking on that road compared with, say, Franklin Road, I suppose there's plenty of the scope for a bus lanes out there rather than, okay.
And also that route has an off-route detour past the high school at morning and afternoon.
Yeah.
It's called up here, which it isn't on its normal route, which is quite a good.
Okay. Any other questions on this item? If not, we'll go to the resolution. Note the contents of this report and the structure plan will be taken to full council for adoption on 4th of September 2025. We have a mover. Matt moved it, Melissa seconded. Any further discussion? All in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you very much.
We'll see you all next week.
Yeah.
Round real quick. Thank you. Progress on the proposed district plan and other key projects. Hey, Alison.
Good morning.
Right. Changes are involved, I believe, for this. Lots of changes.
It's a busy enough time. I will take you through the agenda item, sort of page by page as I normally do. If there are any questions, maybe relating to what we were discussing during the previous item, as opposed to changes in government direction and changes that have been asked of us, then happy to discuss that now or later or whatever works for you.
Okay. Well, if you can also, if there's anything that here that you think's impacted by that, we better highlight it.
We can go through.
Okay.
So essentially, when I drafted this report a couple of weeks ago, I popped in paragraph 4, which is we've basically just heard of the new proposed bill, and in that time it's come into force. So it is an act now, and it is something that we need to take into account in our work. Let's go through the tables. I will go through to page 33, probably the only update since I wrote this report is that there were the 3 submissions received for Sticky Forest 293, Bunker and Rounds over in Wanaka, the court has just come back to those submitters and asked if they'd like to be, join the appeal essentially as 274 parties. So we're just waiting for the timeframe for that, and council will abide by the decision of the court, and we'll wait and see what happens next essentially. Our planner has prepared a planner's report looking at those submissions, and that has been forwarded to the court in the timeframe that we need.
Okay,
The next page.
page 34, there's an update on landscape schedule.
Sorry, I didn't bring a mouse, so it's always painful. Yes, so just updating as to the progress on that, the court assisted mediation that was undertaken, and where we're looking at, specific overlays or further work. We have got a delegation for mediation through to resolution for that, so this is just an update on where we're going, but we have, been able to resolve some of those appeals already, which has been great.
Okay, so basically, there's no scope for removing of the ONL or changing the ONL lines, that's what you're saying?
Yes, the preliminary environment court decision said yes, exactly that.
Okay,
The ONLs and ONFs needed to stay, but there was scope for specific areas of land to be looked at in terms of the broad area within each priority area.
okay.
And look, with regard to this, I think in terms of the recent legislation put to force, this will be one of the projects that we're looking at quite closely.
No, this one will carry on because it's already in the environment court stage.
Yes, so it's
Yep.
we're looking at the wrong slide here. I'll be there.
Yeah, so this is.
This is already in the
priority.
course, so it's
Yep.
gone far enough.
Yep.
Right.
Yep, we're safe with this in that respect. Anything that I'm dealing with the existing district plan and resolving those last appeals from stages 1, 2, and 3 carry on. Because we've already gone through the council hearing process. So that was a line in the sand that the government has sort of said, don't waste time going through preparing for and having hearings at this point in time, unless it fitted some of those particular exemptions, and that includes natural hazards or treaty settlements or anything like that. But if you're already in a process which has gone past that hearing or commencement of a hearing, such as urban intensification variation, you keep on tracking. So for any of those appeals that we're just trying to resolve, they will keep on going, and I'll try and on my mission to clear them off the council's books. Yeah.
I'm sort of just trying to get my head around this. There's
So right.
There's obviously criteria around what you should stop and what you should
Yes.
continue on with.
Yeah.
How has your team had to manage that? Because it makes it quite bitsy, I can imagine. How do you prioritise based on that criteria, but you've also got your own sort of work plan to deal with?
Through the chair, fair question. What we are doing at the moment is really looking to understand the change in legislation and what essentially would be in or out of stage 4 of the district plan process. So stage 4 is essentially all of the operative zones from the operative district plan, which we hadn't pulled into the proposed district plan. So that includes special zones such as Brecknon Flats A and B, Remarkables Park Zone, North Lake. There is a number of others, also the Arrowtown ones. So essentially the zones that we talked to you in previous workshops quite recently. So we've done those section 35 monitoring reports. We'd come to you with options as to the appropriate zone framework. With what the government has asked us to do is basically say, unless there's a real reason, you put that work on hold. And there are other avenues that the government has highlighted, both to landowners and council, if they do want to consider. One is using a streamlined planning process, which is what we used for Ladies Mile, which is a more of a government focused way of giving effect to the first schedule of the Act essentially. So we worked with government in terms of that, the timeframes that we worked on, and that didn't have an environmental court appeal process at the end of it. So there's that option, there's private plan change option, which is always open to landowners, and we see a number of the special zones would quite highly fit into that exemption, such as the Arrowtown ones, Arrow South, Monks Land, that just basically because we're one landowner, so it's a lot easier for a single landowner to undertake a private plan change than in an area such as Shotover Country or Rise, which we're going to update when they're already fragmented. So we've been doing that process. Basically, my team's pivoted in terms of their workload, and they've been all looking at their special zones and where they fit within those categories that have been outlined in the new Act. And that's work in progress. It's not finished yet. We're trying to get the final drafts of that as soon as possible, which basically split out those projects. And as I said earlier, there are some that, because they link with greater goals of the council, Southern Corridor, the Frankton area, in terms of ensuring that that master plan type area is fit for growth, fit for purpose, considering what's coming at us, public transport, all that sort of stuff, to continue on that work essentially. So we'll be asking the government for exemptions. So, yeah, the team has been doing all of that work, and that'll get us in a better position for me to sort of understand percentages of real FTEs essentially in terms of what needs to do, and then the surplus of that will go towards working with the NETA's team. So we do a lot of work together anyway in terms of the master planning of that Frankton area, starting to look at Wanaka area and gathering our data and making sure that it's consistent with the data of our neighbouring councils for the regional spatial planning exercise that we know will be coming at us. So there's still a lot of work to do, and it's I've been sort of planning for a while now, and there's always change, and it's just essentially on how we respond to that. And I've told the team that work in the Queenstown Lakes, it's always evolving. There's always something to do. So we shouldn't worry about that. It's just making the best use of our time to really engage in the further work program that central government's sending us on in terms of the changes to legislation and what that will mean for us.
Yeah, just through there. Thank you, Ali. Just bear in mind, we're in a state of flux right now. We have legislation that's 2 days old that has requirements to do things within 5 days of 2-day-old legislation coming into effect that aren't surprisingly aren't totally crystal clear, and that's always the way with legislation. So we are trying to understand that as best we can. We're getting advice in relation to different things we're doing and how that fits in with the legislative requirements we're being given now to respond to very quickly. Essentially, the view we have is we look at the legislation, we look at the decisions that have been provided to us through council and planning and strategy, and we follow those decisions unless there's a legislative requirement to not do that. And that is the very fast-paced situation.
So, not trying to want to create more work, but especially on the special zones, because you brought it there, I think you had a workshop council.
Yeah.
That. So at some stage, I guess we do, once your team have got up to a point, maybe we need an update report on where we sit with some of those special zones.
To the chair, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Right. Back to your table. Intensification.
Yeah, urban intensification variation. So we had the last day of the hearing sort of in the room with the commissioners yesterday in Wanaka. Yeah, as you can see, we've had sort of 3 weeks of hearings that were held in Arrowtown, Queenstown and Wanaka. feedback from the chair to the planners involved yesterday was, and to our administration support team, was really good, and thanked the team for the large volume of work and care that they took into preparing responses, section 42A, in respect of the large volume of submissions that we got for that variation. So that was great. I think from my side, and I can defer to the chair who's in the room for the whole time, as part of that hearing process, I think a lot of lay submitters who hadn't taken part in a process such as this felt supported in it, came and spoke really well to the commissioners in support of their submissions, and the commissioners in turn were really supportive of those submitters having their say, asking questions, and yeah, I think it for a variation that had caused a bit of angst in the community and probably still is. The hearing process itself, I think, was fair to all involved.
Yeah, just to add to that, I have to also acknowledge the huge amount of work and good work done by the staff and the Ellie's team, and was even getting compliments from the submitters. Yes, some of them have sat there for quite some time. Especially Monica, one of them actually made his submission, made a thank you to the staff and the admin team for. They did a great job, because you have to manage all the submitters and some of them moving them around, and Lindley and her team did a wonderful job. Yeah, and our chair was very good, because he's very good at formal process, trying to keep it reasonably informed. There's a lot of issues to be dealt with at the legal level, policy level, and then right down into the layman's submitters. So it's going to take some time. This is indicated here in the item. It'll be late 25, early 26, I guess, before that'd be right.
I'm not tasked with writing that recommendation.
Anyway,
Yeah.
it's been an interesting process. Yeah.
Can I just say, it's not really a question, but I also just want to thank the team, and especially for arranging the week in Arrowtown. I think that made a big difference to the people that were really passionate about it, and I think it gave them an opportunity to have their say in their town, and I think that made a really big difference. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much. Landscape schedules, is this one impacted by?
Yep.
Yes,
So-
apologies for jumping in earlier. When I saw landscape schedules, we'd like to talk about this.
I'm excited. Okay, this one is landscape schedules, Upper Clutha landscape. This one would be caught by the plan stop process, so it's one that we're looking at really carefully and really quickly, in the sense that submissions and further submissions have been are in. We're at the stage where council staff were preparing their 42A planners reports for a hearing later this year. So at this stage we're taking legal advice and trying to understand or make sure that we're making the right call, but it could be one, will be one essentially for the section 293 part of it, which was the Clutha Mata Ao, which was a direction from the Environment Court. We will apply to continue that, because it's important that we finish off that process. And then the other part of the Upper Clutha landscapes schedules are important in terms of getting within our proposed district plan a real understanding and I guess background and sort of cohesive scheduling in terms of how we look at our rural areas, and helping both applicants and planners understanding what's important in those areas. So it is one that we will look at if the minister will consider letting us continue.
Yeah, look, through the chair, I think also it's important to understand that as this is new legislation, there are bits and pieces here that aren't absolutely 100% clear. We will need to seek some guidance from central government. We've been given a clear mandate in relation to what they want to occur. We in some cases will, of course, seek guidance through the process that we undertake to understand that we're on the right track in relation to what we're proposing.
Okay, cool. Right, we've talked about special zones.
Yeah, hopefully there's
Yep, keep
enough
going.
in there for that. Waihi Puna Lanes is probably, another one that may not make the cut under that new, exemption framework, given that, yeah, they're not a direct result of a treaty settlement. And then, spatial plan, we've talked about, Southern Corridor earlier in this meeting, and I talked about Frankton Priority Area, and that's a work stream that we will continue in whatever form going forward, because that's important for our next stage of district planning, whatever that is called. In terms of natural hazards, that does have an automatic exemption under the new Act, so Gorge Road work could continue there, and private plan changes also have an automatic exemption, so the Hills private plan change, which is open for public submission at the moment, will continue.
Right.
Making the plan operative, that has sort of slipped over the last couple of weeks from my desk, but it's still something that I want to get sorted just because it's a combination of a lot of work. As you'll see when we talk through the appeals and the public excluded part of this meeting, we're still working really hard to resolve those remaining appeals to make it really a lot easier. I can see your question, Councillor Smith. I'll get to it in a minute. A lot easier for especially our planners and consultants to have confidence that they are just using one plan, which is the proposed plan, even though at the moment they're using 86F, which treats a proposed plan as operative if there's no outstanding appeals.
Brendan, question?
Yeah, one of those unenviable situations we have with the government legislation is that we are having to sideline important work that has been identified by council, but there's private plan changes and things that are still progressing. How do we reconcile that with our community if they ask why, why are we putting some things aside and progressing with others?
Based on government direction, I guess.
Yeah, through the chair, I think that is the situation we're in right now, where we have new legislation put into government, like in this area, as lots of other areas that's occurring. And we're reacting to that as best we can while taking consideration of the decisions that have been made and looking at what legislation says and how we can progress to meet that legislation and in the best part possible meet the decisions that have been made previously. It's a difficult spot to be, and I totally agree.
No, I understand that. You touched on a little bit before saying that you will be applying for exemptions for some things. Can you just describe how that process of prioritisation worked in terms of what things you're applying for exemptions for and what ones you're not?
Yes.
Yes, through the chair, we'll be taking advice or direction from what is in the Act. Then we will be using information that we have to hand in terms of, as I said before, if it's single ownership of land with a landowner who's wanting to continue in progress and potentially subdivide, then we'd leave them to a private plan change process. And basically, yeah, really looking at information that we have at the moment. Each of the team has been working on each of the zones in terms of having that written record of our decision making and what we think fits best with the Act and what doesn't. So there's that clear sort of framing of why we're doing what we're doing. And we're also, because it's a new Act, working through our delegations on how we then respond to going to the minister for any exemptions as well, and I haven't got clarity on that, but we were gonna.
Okay,
And through the chair, I believe it's section 80 of the new legislation that outlines criteria we are required to go through to understand whether things will meet or potentially meet a request for an exemption to continue, and things that, well, the rest that will not, essentially.
oh, we'll be more on that, I'm sure.
As soon as we can, yeah, thank you.
Okay, the housing,
Yep. When I wrote that, I thought we might be able to make the 4th of September meeting, but we're going to take it to the October one. A lot of work done in that space recently in terms of the HBA. We've been getting chapters to review, which we've got an internal team within both my team and Anita's team going through, providing comments, and we'll hopefully get, well, we will get back a final all-encompassing report that will be presented to the council as soon as we can.
so it goes to the council meeting in October, not this meeting, that's right? Yep, cool.
That's what we're working towards. I do understand that's our goal, but I do understand that's a large meeting as well, which is not ideal, but that's for.
So what are the implications if it doesn't make that meeting? You just put it in for the next training, the next
Yeah.
council?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's correct.
Is it no significant implications because we're not in the intensification, but we're not relying on it, or
No.
it's not been put on the table, it
No.
hasn't been. Okay,
So, and because we put our work on the FDS on hold, one, because of that HBA, but because of changing in government direction as well. Yeah, we'll still be using that information when we can, but it's just a question of timing on which agenda it will go to, given the breadth of work I think that the councillors will be asked to consider before the end of the term.
okay. Any comment, questions on that? Right, understood. Thank you. Right, your table and attachment B.
Table attachment B, I've just put in a date under, on page 44 in terms of the Williamson mediation, which is happening next week, which I will be attending. And we'll report back in the appropriate manner once that happens. And those are the major updates. We've got consent documentation being drafted for the Mulligan's investments work. So you'd seen previous agenda items in that respect. And those are probably the main ones just to discuss, and that's me, unless there's any questions.
Any questions on what we go to public? No? Okay, the resolution, note the contents of this report. And note the updates on timing and progress on projects undertaken by the planning team. And I want to move that. Melissa's moved it, a seconder. Gavin, any further discussion? All in favour? Carried.
Aye.
Thank you. All right, now I'll move that the public be excluded from the meeting. I have a seconder. Melissa?
Good.
All in favour? Right. Okay.